I'd like to welcome everyone this evening to the September 14th council meeting at 7 p.m. Could we please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carol, would you do the roll call, please?
Steve Beardsley,
Present.
Mike Wright, is absent.
Yes.
Grant Fuller,
Present.
Joe Palmer,
Present.
Megan Sheets,
Present.
Clarence Worthen,
Present.
Eric Woods.
Present.
Next on the agenda is the minutes from the August 24th, 2020 regular meeting.
I move we accept the minutes as presented for August 24th.
I'll second.
Wait a second. Okay, roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Mike Wright, Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Abstain.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is ordinance number 20-15, and I would entertain a motion to read this by title only. Just read the ordinance for appropriation.
You have a motion by Eric?
Eric, yeah,
I'll second.
Joe seconded.
Roll call, Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Yes.
Ordinance or resolution for appropriations and tax rates.
And this is
2015.
sorry. And this is on first reading. Could I get a motion to pass this on first reading? Then I'm going to ask Jerry for a reading to talk to us about this.
I'll move that ordinance 2015 on first reading.
Okay, Jerry, could you come out and answer any questions or concerns that we might have and talk about the budget for next year?
Tap the bottom. Just tap it and turn at the very bottom. I'll have to actually press
Very long term. Yeah, so I don't have any major updates. For the last time I was here, I know that you guys made a few additional cuts. We shifted some stuff around, balanced out all the major operating funds within the city, mainly general fund. It's more than surplusing right now at a little over 13,000. We have all the forms filled out in Gateway, so right now it's just going through the statutory process of public hearings and the adoption. As far as that goes, I'm here to answer any questions. I know Clarence might have a question on the tax rates and the property tax levy amount. So if you want, I can address that later. Okay. Unless anybody, I don't know if any other council members would have that same question.
I think that we started out with finance committee, then we moved to the full council and had Reed to assist us with this, and I think we've come up with a good budget for 2021. I'm comfortable with it. I think our tax levy, our tax rate, we're in good shape there. I just didn't know if you had any other.
Yeah, as far as the tax rate, I will go ahead and address that. That's on the ordinance. There are some safeguards in there, so to speak. We put a pad on the general fund levy of 10%, and then also we put conservatively we use 85% of the 2020 AV, which ultimately drives up the tax rate that you see there. Well, the state will keep you at your maximum levy, so, the levy is inflated a little bit, and then plus with the AD, only at 85% of 2020, that also drives up the tax rate. Now, I will point out, the 2020 NAV for the city actually decreased, let's see here, a little over 3 million. So the tax rate is projected to go up slightly, but you guys aren't doing anything that the majority of other units do in the state of Indiana as far as taking the maximum levy. It's just your AD decreased a little bit, so that caused the tax rate to go up slightly. But the tax rate that you see on the ordinance there is inflated, it won't be that high. Neither will the levy. And this is just showing the property tax levy. I know Clarence, I think, had a question as far as the levy and the budget there. There are other revenues that will help pay for that budget, fund that budget, as far as like income taxes and other services and charges, fees, and so on and so forth. This is just what the state has to approve.
Does anyone have any questions for Jerry or any comments? Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Carol, can we do a roll call, please?
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
And I want to thank everyone for their hard work on this budget. I think we've all worked really well together to come up with a good budget for 2021. The next meeting, we will not be having a public hearing, or the second reading is going to be the first meeting in October. Is that correct, Carol?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and I overlooked public comments, but I do not see any here. Does anyone have any public comments for tonight? Next on the agenda is ordinance 20-16, and I would entertain a motion to have this read by title only.
So moved. Second.
We had a motion by Joe and a second by Brandon. Is that correct?
Yes. And then roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Common Council Ordinance number 2016, an ordinance setting the salaries and hourly wages for employees of the civil city of Frankfort, Indiana.
Any discussion or comments, or do you want to make a motion? Pass on first reading. I didn't know if anybody from the finance committee had anything they would like to say.
I just think we'd like to acknowledge again that this is including a 2% increase for our employees. Very conservative, but what we're able to bear at this time.
Right. At this time, with the financial situation and the unknown for the next year, we have come up with a 2% raise for the employees for 2021. Would someone like to make a motion to pass this on first reading?
I'll make a motion, we pass ordinance 2016 on first reading.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Mike Bright, Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Ordinance 20-16 passes on first reading. Next on the agenda, we have ordinance 20-12 on the first reading. Could I get a motion to have this read by title only, please?
So moved.
Second.
Yes. 17, I say 12, I don't have glasses on, thank you. Steam up. Roll call.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
section is passed out on first reading. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ordinance number 2017, an ordinance establishing the salaries of the elected officials of the city of Frankfort, Indiana.
Second?
Is there any comments or questions? Roll call, please, Carol.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Ordinance 20-17 passes on first reading. Ordinance 2015, 16, and 17 will not be passed on second reading next meeting. All three of those are going to go to the first meeting in October. And at that time, we'll also have a public hearing. Next on the agenda is ordinance 20-18.
I move ordinance 2018 be read by title only.
Second.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Is there any discussion on 20-18? I don't know what to do with that.
Need to
or
read it.
Todd,
Need to read it.
sorry.
Ordinance number 20-18, an ordinance amending the wastewater admissibility standards.
Are you gonna say?
It's not.
I'll move to pass ordinance 2018 on first reading.
Second.
Roll call, Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, I'm Mike Beck, and I'm your water and wastewater superintendent. Be here to answer any questions you have about this ordinance. It's a routine thing for us. It's required by EPA and IDM that we do this review of local limits periodically, and we were due for that. So we have to analyze the metals or any other toxic constituents in the wastewater, both coming into the plant and leaving and going into the creek. So we did that analysis, and we had a consultant help us analyze that data. We sent to EPA, and they came back and said, you have some revisions to make in your ordinance, and we did that. That's what this is, revisions. So, these are primarily part of the pretreatment program, which is industrial users of the wastewater system. So each one of our industries has a permit, and we put these limits, these metals limits in that permit, so they know what they can discharge.
I might add to Mike's comments that we did not redline the changes from the previous ordinance, but we did attach a copy of section 51.07 of the municipal code that does have stated there in those sub-areas for amendment for these standards. You can compare them if you have any questions.
Aye.
I was gonna say, last on this, since it is an amended, standards, do we have to treat it as an amended, or since it's a first reading, we just taken it as a regular ordinance? Should we have said this is on amended ordinance, or?
Well, the title is an ordinance amending the wastewater admissibility standards. I think we're okay on that. I don't know that there's any urgency on this to pass it on first reading, so Mike.
Less adding more to it. I'm just curious about how these are arrived. It's a standardized formula.
There's a huge spreadsheet that we use that's prepared by EPA. It has all sorts of calculations in it. And it's designed to look at all of the things at the wastewater plant that could be affected by the toxicity of metals. And so that there's the sludge that we land apply once a year on farmer fields. We don't want it to be too high in metals. There's the discharge into the creek, we don't want that to be too high. And then there's a toxicity that you could have in the plant itself. The plant is a biological system where you have air bubbling and you have a biomass that does all the work for you. If you have metals that are too high, it could kill those bacteria. So once all the analysis is done, the spreadsheet spits out a result for each one of these metals. And the more stringent one, depending on whether it's for sludge or for discharge into the creek or plant processes, that's the number that you use. In the case of all of these amendments, they're all lower than we had before. So they're more stringent, and they'll be more stringent in our industry's permits.
Great. Appreciate that explanation.
You bet.
Is there any other questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike.
By the way, we've got construction going on, so you're all welcome to come down and visit us from time to time and see how it's progressing.
Roll call, Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Ordinance 20-18 passes on the first reading. Next on the agenda is ordinance 20-19, and this is on the first reading tonight.
Make a motion that ordinance number 20-19 be read the title only. Would you rather let it read it?
The whole ordinance.
Sure.
I'll second.
Joe's back.
One second.
Roll call, Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthing,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Ordinance number 20-19, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition, construction, and installation of certain improvements to the waterworks system of the city of Frankfort, Indiana, the issuance of revenue bonds to provide for the cost thereof, the collection, segregation, and distribution of the revenues of such system, the safeguarding of the interests of the owners of such revenue bonds, and other matters connected therewith, including the issuance of notes in anticipation of such bonds and repealing ordinances inconsistent herewith.
Thank you, Carol. Rich, were you going to come up and talk to us about this ordinance this evening?
Certainly can.
So this is the first reading for the SRF State Revolving Fund bond ordinance for the water for the construction that we anticipate to happen. I think also Andrew Lanham's here if you want to get into any of the numbers. We have a high number in the ordinance just to be safe, 14.1, I believe, 14.5. Yeah, we put a high number in there. I think it's going to be in more of the 13.6. Yep. I would say too that I just received comments today from council for the state revolving fund that they have a few nits that they want to change around, along with the exhibit that goes with the SRF for their financial assistance agreement. They have a new one. They just sent that today. So for the second reading, we'll incorporate all those changes so it'll be an amended ordinance. But if you have any specific questions about exactly any of the numbers or where we're going with that, Andrew, I think probably the best to discuss those with you.
Next meeting then, is
Yes.
that correct? And we'll have a public hearing?
No public hearings required.
Okay, okay,
And then the third reading in October.
okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Rich tonight? Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
So we need a motion, yeah. Would anyone like to make a motion to pass ordinance 20-19 on the first reading?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please, Carol.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Gordon,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Ordinance 20-19 passes on first reading. Next on the agenda is resolution 20-16, and this is a resolution directing transfer of appropriation funds, and this is from Carol's office, the clerk treasurer.
Just a little explanation, we're a little short in office supplies and we have travel funds available in the HR travel expense line that won't be used this year due to COVID. I'll entertain any other questions if you have any.
Make a motion to pass resolution -20-16.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Gordon,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Resolution 20-16 passes. There's nothing under old business unless somebody has something they want to bring up tonight. Does anybody have anything for us? Next is new business, and Bart Creening, the park superintendent, is going to speak to us tonight about USDA practices for the year.
Good evening. So basically, I'm here tonight to give you guys what I think is an important message that the zookeepers and I received about 3 weeks ago when we had a USDA inspection. Basically, the way that the USDA inspects us now is they arrive and they look at mammals that are at the zoo. They don't really care about how many birds we have, if we have iguanas, if we have anything else other than our zoo animals. What she mentioned when she was leaving, which we did have a very good inspection, she mentioned to us they're in talks right now to bring birds and basically poultry and anything that has feathers under the USDA's purview. So the reason that this is so important is because we have a very large number of birds, a very large number of exotic birds, and I do believe that once the USDA comes in and starts inspecting all of these facilities and the birds, that not only will the expenses go up drastically, but we will probably have to build an infrastructure out at TPA. So, for example, Lindsay, my senior zookeeper, and I, we went over basically if we were arriving here and we were going to do an inspection, these are some of the things that we talked about. So this is just what they could come in and tell us. So I'm just going to read these off. Feel free to stop me and ask me a question at any point. So we have recently, they expanded and built a newer barn. So the birds now have, in the wintertime, all the exotics, they all come inside and they're in basically all winter. The things that they could say, there's no drainage, ventilation is not adequate, The kitchen is very small. There is no storage for extra food. There are, what they could say is, are certain breeds living together that cannot? Do we need more boxes for the summertime? What are we feeding them? How often are we feeding them? Are we feeding them the correct food? How's our documentation? How many babies were born this year? How many babies died? How many adults died? What were the reasons? Did we take photos? Did every bird see a vet? How many employees do we have? How many visitors do we have? And what I think is going to be a huge deal is what our enrichment process is. So the way that the enrichment works now is every single day, all the birds, if they are inside, they get brand new toys. Those toys are removed from their enclosure, they're cleaned, and they're basically put into a shelf to come back out next week. So 7 days a week, they're getting brand new toys. Obviously, we don't buy them we clean them and recycle them. But this process could change drastically. Now, in terms of documentation and how the birds are taken care of right now and what feed we feed them, it's excellent. I don't foresee any major problems, but these are all questions that they could come in and ask us. So when I've been doing inspections in the past through the NFPA, when they start having talks, we're about 2 years away from them coming to the facility and saying all these things are going to change. So what I did is, as soon as I found this out, I got on the agenda because I wanted to come and let you guys know that we could be having a very different talk about how many birds we have, what birds we have, where we're going to store them. It could be drastically different here in a few years. So in the meantime, we will be doing as much research as we can. Even today, I was on their websites. They've put nothing out. These are all preliminary talks. In best case scenario, they come in a few years and they say, everything looks great. You guys don't have to do anything. I already think it's excellent care. The enrichment programs that we have right now, they're very, very good. Lindsay is outstanding at every single day if a bird looks different, figuring out why. You know, a lot of times birds will pick on each other. They'll pick on themselves. They'll pull their feathers out if they're upset. We don't have that very often. And if we do, they're immediately quarantined to a different area, and we try to assess the problem, like why did this happen? For example, this year, we believe that our iguanas are probably too big for the aviary. And so we're going to go ahead and, with the Board of Works' permission, try to find a new home for our iguanas. We have 4 of them, and a few times this year, there have been issues with birds. And so we think it's the iguanas. And then just a couple days ago, they found confirmation that it is. So another example is we have a few different types of birds that are, even though they're in the aviary, they're also in their own cages because they can damage magpies, for example. So basically, if you guys have any questions about what any of that means, I'll answer them. All this is preliminary in the beginning, and over the next 2 years to 3 years, whenever they come and tell us this, I will be giving you guys as many updates as I can. I do think it's very important that we think about it realistically and what monetary value, or how much this is going to cost the city. I think that's going to be our biggest thing. Now, they do have, like I said, a very good barn, very good enrichment program. We document everything already. We're not required to say how many birds we have, how many babies we have. We do that anyway. So that's one thing that Lindsay and Kim, the AA, they've done over the past couple of years is every time a bird is born, anytime anything is born, it's immediately documented. We want to start putting photographs in there. We want to start building this up in the meantime. And we want to, hopefully, when they arrive here in the next couple of years and they tell us that these have changed, we're already going to be prepared. But there's also that, this could be inadequate for what we do. They might have a lot of different ideas than what we do. So that's basically what I wanted to give you guys a heads up on, that in a couple of years, the USDA should, most likely, if she's already told us about it, it's probably going to happen. I don't think it's something that they're, even in this time with all this COVID going on, they're still meeting and talking about this. I think that's pretty important to take into consideration. So, do you guys have any questions or anything?
Really don't have any.
You don't really have any specific questions, you know what they're gonna ask you.
No. But what we can do is we already deal with this on the mammal side. And so some of the things that they do is they say, did a vet inspect them this year? Let me see their enclosure. Let me see where they live. Let me see who they're living with. One of the things they brought up this year during the inspection that they never had is our brown lemur, who's been here for years and years. They were concerned that she couldn't hear the other lemurs when she's inside the barn, you know, which we were able to say she already has special consideration because our lemur loves people. So she's positioned in the barn where every time the zookeepers are here, every single day, she's interacting with the people. Now, we were able to pass that because we gave that as an example. So part of it is going to be, yes, we can take care of this right now for you. And then the other time is, you know, they'll give us a year to say either fix it or they're gone. So, and unfortunately, they're who gives us our license. You know, we are inspected by a few state facilities, but the USDA is the big one, so.
Well, Bart, I appreciate you keeping us up to date on this and also being proactive and not taking a wait and see approach. So look forward to future reports.
Thank you, Bart. That was a very good report.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Do we have anything else this evening? Does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss? Jason and I are gonna meet tomorrow to talk about State Road 28-200. Again, we had some more information come in today from NDOT, so I'd rather not, bring that up on a decision at this time until we figure out exactly what we need on that. Is there anything else? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
have a second?
Thank you.
How are you doing?
All the blueberries sold out.
Yeah, I know.
I was trying to have a grant thing.
Good.